What I want to share with you though today is for the people that you are enrolling in care, how do you get better and better retention? How do you do that? I want you to walk away from this presentation with, all right, I know what I need to do.
Hello, friends. Welcome to today's 1 hour session. My name is Holly Jensen, and I'm very excited to be with Dr. Miles Bodzin, and together we are going to be presenting to you today on really how to be able to convert more patients, boost your revenue, and build lasting loyalty. Dr. Bodzin, can you share a few words on why we're putting together this webinar and what our mission is here at Cashback?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for that nice little introduction there, and welcome to everybody who's joining through the webinar. Real quick, why we're doing this. We're doing this because Holly and I have now been doing this for over 20 years. We travel the country speaking all over the place. We get to meet with, interact with thousands of chiropractors, and I don't say that lightly. Literally, we get to interact with that many doctors all over the time, all over the place. And one of the most common frustrations we hear when we're talking and kind of getting to know the doctors is, as we get to know them and talk with them, this issue of always needing new patients, not converting people to care, not having people stay under care. It's a common frustration, and I think it's actually gotten worse over the years. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it has to do with the trainings doctors are going to or who they are. I don't know what it is, but it seems to have gotten worse. So we feel like we have a mission because we need to help solve this problem. Because at the end of the day, I think we could all agree that if we want to have success in practice, we need to have patients getting great results, which means they're following through and they're sticking to care. And here's another thing we observe, and ask yourself this as well, is that we often see doctors are kind of on this hamster wheel of always looking for the next new patient, the next new patient. They're on this hamster wheel constantly looking, and it's because they can't seem to keep people or convert people as well. So we figured this out. We've been doing this long enough now where we've literally we're confident we know what we're talking about when it comes to this. Not to sound arrogant or anything, but the point I'm getting across is we've seen over and over and over the stuff we're about to share with you today. It's game changing for practices. So I think we're going to share some new stuff with you guys, and we're excited to dive into the material and do this with you guys.
And while you're loading up your screen, I would like to share with our audience, this is being recorded. We will share this with you. If you do have any questions, please put them into the Q&A section and we'll be happy to address those. If we don't address them immediately, I will make sure that we have time before the end of the webinar to address any questions.
And I'll say, as a presenter, we really like the questions and the interaction. I know when Holly and I are speaking in live events, I was just in Denver this last week, and I know in a couple of weeks we'll be in Atlanta. When we're around traveling, we love the interaction. It makes for a much more educational experience for everybody. And at the end of the day, we want you guys to get value out of what we're presenting here today. So let's get rolling. With that being said, quick some housekeeping, quick housekeeping. That is, from a disclaimer standpoint, there's two things I want to mention in today's presentation. The subject matter of insurance probably won't come up, but if insurance comes up, we're by no means are we suggesting that you leave insurance companies or targeting any specific insurance company to leave. And the other thing I'll mention real quick is there will be some examples in our slides that show fees and care plans and things that address money. By no means are we suggesting that those are the fees you should charge. And we have to, as a group, we can't get together and say, this is what everybody should be charging. So just from a legal perspective, we wanted to make sure we made that clear to you guys that ultimately fees are up to you to charge. It's not necessarily what we're telling you to do. Real little background. Some of you, I recognize names. There's some names on our attendee list that I recognize that are either new or even people I've known for many, many years. So welcome. And there's some names I don't recognize. So I don't know whether you know who Holly and I are or background. So let me just give a little background here. This picture you see here is, there's me on the far right with the funny looking mustache, and there's little Holly there right in the middle. This picture's probably, I'm going to say, about 20 years old, maybe 18, 19 years old. One of the most things I'm most proud about in this picture is that all three of those ladies you see there, Holly in the middle, Laura on the right, and Lori on the far left, all three of them still work with us today, this very day, 20 years later. And we're very proud of that fact that we have such loyalty along not just with our patients, but with our employees as well. So Holly, thank you for being such a loyal person next to me. It's wonderful.
You're welcome.
But looking back 20 years ago, I real quick story to tell, and that is when I first got in practice, we're all smiling here and happy and everything. And this is after we figured some things out to have success. But early in my career, I struggled. Like a lot of doctors, I got out in the practices in the mid 90s. And during that time period, there was this whole new thing going on. All the rage of the time in Southern California was this new thing called managed care. HMOs, PPOs, which are pretty common today, but it was a brand new thing back then. And I, as a young practitioner at the time, could not get involved with any of those. I wanted to, but I couldn't. They wouldn't let me in. It was kind of this closed door, good old boys club type thing, and I couldn't get in. And patients would come in wanting to use their HMO or their PPO, and I wasn't part of it. And I ran into a brick wall of like, I couldn't get these people to get care. I struggled basically. And that struggle ultimately led to a place where I almost gave up on chiropractic. I almost left the profession due to the faith of my wife and the support of my family. I ended up moving back in with my wife and my little girl at the time. We moved back in with my parents, and we lived with them because we couldn't support this. We couldn't basically support ourselves. We could support the practice, but not ourselves. And it was during that window of time where I kind of got a breather by living with them to kind of explore, what do I need to do to turn things around? And in that time period, I was taught a couple things. One of the things I was taught to do was put patients on care plans. And that was the beginning of us turning the corner of going from struggle to having some great success. And like a lot of doctors, I learned a strategy of how you sell care and close the deal and enroll people in programs and get prepays. I learned that thing, and I started kicking butt and doing really well with it. One thing that I struggled with, though, at that time period was not only did I get kind of baffled by the fact that I had some patients who really kind of got the big idea of chiropractic and really understood based upon the education we gave them. It baffled me that these people would understand things, and yet they would still drop out of care. And then I had other patients who really never understood what chiropractic was, but stayed with me for a long time. And it confused me. The reason it confused me is because I was taught in school that if patients kind of understood the message of chiropractic, they would follow me to the ends of the earth, that they would buy into the message of chiropractic and stick. And I was finding that wasn't the case, that even though they joined and they signed up on a prepay, a lot would not renew. And then when I had this one experience that kind of tipped me over the edge, and that was 1 week in practice, I had 3 families that were all in the military get transferred out of town, and they all had prepaid me for care. And lo and behold, I had the pleasure of writing about $10,000 of refunds that week. And I did it. I was able to do it, but it concerned me. I looked in the mirror and said, wow, this really sucks. This really stinks that I'm building a practice, but really it's at risk that at any point in time, people could stop and I have to refund money. And it's a stressful way to live. And even though I was getting a taste of success, it was bittersweet, I guess you would say. And I was sharing this story with a friend at the time. And when I shared the story, and this friend was a colleague, a fellow chiropractor, and he shared with me that in his practice, his wife, who was the business person, suggested that he does monthly payments. And I thought, well, that's an interesting idea. I never thought of that. And that was kind of the beginnings of us kind of moving to this model of having patients on care plans, putting on monthly payments. And that little change ended up skyrocketing my practice to the point where when I retired from practice in 2011, which was a little while ago now when I retired, that our average patient had been with us for over 300 visits, that we went from this place of struggle to extraordinary success. And it was just some subtle changes we made. And what I ended up doing in practice at this time period is I started interviewing patients. I wanted to find out, like, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you, who have been here a long time, and I know you don't really understand chiropractic, but I want to ask you some questions. Why are you still coming here? And I want to really kind of peel back the layers of what drove the behavior of our patients to stay versus leave, because that's ultimately what drives our success. That's ultimately what drives us having success in practice as people. We're in the people business, right? They're getting care, they're staying under care, they're paying us, etc. And I really wanted to discover that. And this picture here is that time period. That's when we were doing this back in the day of really learning and uncovering things. And what we're going to share with you today are some of the key takeaways we had during that window of time. Now, Holly and I now travel around the country. I mentioned we're teaching this stuff, and you can see here's an example. I can't remember what state we were in here. Do you remember, Holly, where we were in this picture? I don't remember.
That was
probably about a year ago.
It was Arkansas.
It was Arkansas. This was Arkansas, us teaching at one of the events there. So we love doing this. We love traveling around teaching it. And this topic has gained so much attention, quite frankly, that it landed Holly and I on the cover of some of our trade magazines here in chiropractic, the American Chiropractor and the Chiropractic Assistant magazine. It's really gained a lot of attention, and hence we're on this mission to help serve chiropractors all over the place. I just got done telling a little bit of a story of back in the day where I ended up moving back with my parents and some of the struggles we went through and some of the challenges we overcame. We actually did a movie. If you haven't seen this, I encourage you to make note of this, come back to it later. It's an inspiring story of being called to serve as a chiropractor. It's a regular feature-length movie. go to thecallingmovie.com. You can watch it for free and stream it. It's a story of becoming a chiropractor. It's a story of a CA exploring and finding their calling. It's even the story of a patient getting great results. I think you'd really enjoy it. So just share that as a quick little gift to you guys. So let's get started in today's material. I'm going to refer to the things we're doing to what we have some names associated. And what I'm going to share with you today, we've kind of tagged it the cash practice process. We gave it a name to say, so you can identify it. This process of building this type of practice that we're about to describe. The first thing we're going to talk about is, doctors, we want to start with the end in mind. What is the end goal? Well, the end goal is, I want you to describe for yourself the top 3 things that define success in your practice. Take a moment. I'm going to pause here for a moment. Just take a moment, and we don't have a lot of time to do this, but self-reflect. What are 3 things that you would use to define success in your practice? Really take a moment and think about this for yourself. What are 3 things you would categorize as, if I had these 3 things, I'm being successful in practice? What are they? Take a moment to think about that. And I know I've asked this question many, many times to lots and lots of chiropractors, and there's some common answers we get, and I'll show those to you in just a moment. But just take a moment and reflect for yourself. Like, some doctors say what defines success is how much free time I have. Like, that's an important thing to them, or how much money they're making, or how many new patients they're getting, or what kind of clinical results they're getting. Like, those are common things. And in fact, when we do this with people, the common categories of success we've seen that things fall into are, number 1, we always hear something about patients getting better results, better clinical outcomes. That's a common thing I hear out in the field. Yeah, that's important to me as a doctor, that I'm getting great success with my patients. Another thing we have is something around freedom of time. That's the big one. Like, I want to be able to take vacations. I want to be able to, take time off from work. I don't want to be tied down to the practice. I want to feel like I can leave it and it's not going to go down. Some doctors go on even saying, I want freedom of location, where they can literally move around, where maybe they're the clinic owner and they have many clinics, but they have associates running everything. So they themselves have the freedom of location and living wherever they want. So something around freedom of time and location usually comes up. And the third one, quite frankly, is more money. I've never had a doctor say they didn't want to make more money as a category of their success. Now, I don't mean just more revenue, like literally more profit, like literally more take-home money. Holly, is there anything you want to add when I say this? I know sometimes when you hear me out speaking, you may hear some other things, but is there anything you want to add at this point?
Yeah, I think also it's just like, defining success is your future. What kind of legacy do you want to leave for your family or for your community?
Great one to bring up, because I think at some point, if we're clinic owners, I think most clinic owners we speak with, they do want to have some kind of exit strategy at some point. And the exit strategy is kind of your legacy, I guess you would say. How is that going to be left behind? Is it going to be, where the practice is still thriving once you're gone, or did you make a lot of money selling it? Like, what does that look like? So yeah, that absolutely is a category of success as your legacy and your exit strategy. So we're going to define success in this case as the end goal, the peak of our cash practice process. We'll say this pyramid here, and we're going to use money, because I go back to this. Money is always one of these things that comes up, and it's something that's easily to measure. Like, I can't measure your clinical outcomes and I can't measure your freedom of time and location, but we can measure money. That's an easy metric to measure, is how much money's, ending up in your bank account. So we're going to use success, at least, or the definition of success, as money, although we know it's more than that. We're going to use that as our metric to define success as occurring. Okay, so I think we could all agree success is more than money, but we're going to use that as our metric here. Now, when it comes to money, though, it's really interesting to see the impact that money can have, or the potential money you have. What I mean is like, I as a presenter, or Holly as a presenter, or any presenter can get up on stage and talk about you making more money if you do X, Y, Z. We could say, like, buy this piece of equipment and start selling those services for that equipment and you'll make more money. Or go market and get more new patients, you'll make more money. And that's all valid. Those are all valid things. But what I want to share with you is that there's money in your existing practice that's hidden right now that you're not realizing, that has nothing to do with you getting more new patients, has nothing to do with you raising your fees, has nothing to do with you charging for more, getting more services or buying any equipment. Literally in your existing practice, there's money you're not receiving right now. So I want to take a moment and go through a brief exercise. And I encourage you guys to do this on your own. You can either do it now or later at another time. I'm going to do this in our presentation right now, so you can kind of get an example of this. But ultimately, this is something you can do on your own. And what you're doing is you can go to, at some point, you can either use the QR code there on your cell phone or on your computer, go to cashpractice.com/money potential. So just cashpractice.com/money potential. I'm just going to click on here and it'll open up another tab for me to show you this. And it's a landing page you can go on, and there's an exercise you can go through that shows you the potential hidden money in your practice. So I'm going to go through as an example here. This is a common example that I'll use, and that is we're going to ask you in step one are just some basic stats you currently have in your practice. So for example, the first thing we want to know is how many new patient consultations you're doing per month. For my example, I'm going to put in 20. So what we're saying here is this practice is getting 20 new patients coming to the practice each month for a consultation. The next thing is saying how many of them enroll in care. So when you present to patients a program of care, whatever it may be in your practice, how many of the 20 are actually enrolling? For this example, I'm going to say 13, that this office is successfully enrolling 13 out of 20 people into care once they, and here's, let me also clarify that these are not people who say, well, let me just try a couple visits and I'll let you know. That's not what I'm referring to. What I'm referring to are, these are 13 people that the doctor said you need X, and the patient is agreeing to X. They're agreeing to what the doctor recommended, that you recommended. So in this case, we're going to say 13. PVA, this is a stat that we want to look at that basically looks at on average how long a patient stays with you. Now, there's several ways to calculate it. I don't want to get into now the math about calculating. I'll just simply say this. You want to think of on average your initial programs of care. How long do you expect people to stay with you? If your initial programs of care are routinely 30 visits, 40 visits, 50 visits, whatever they are patients, on average, how long are they staying for those programs? So in this example, I'm going to say this office has an average PVA of 24 visits. And that's how long people typically stay. Just to clarify, in America right now, the average is between 6 and 12 visits. That's what the typical number of visits a patient sees a chiropractor for in the US. Now, the next thing we want to ask is the average fee per visit. Okay, so in your practice, what are you averaging per visit from a patient? Is it $40, $70, $60, whatever it may be? I'm going to put in here $60 as an average fee per visit. So when you add up all of your collections divided by the number of visits, it'll give you a sense of what you're averaging per visit. Those 4 metrics you're going to put in step one. Step 2 is simply goal setting. What do we want our PVA to be, and what do we want our enrollment to be? Now, in this step, we give you desired numbers here. So if this practice, and I went back, has a PVA currently of 24, we're suggesting that PVA raises to 45, that's the recommendation based upon what we see as a potential improvement to that practice. Now, if that number resonates with you, you could stick with it. If it doesn't resonate with you, you want to say, no, I think it should be 50, you could slide the slider and move it to 50. If you think it should be lower, go ahead and slide it down lower. That's your decision as a goal in the practice. Think of that as a goal for your retention. When it comes to the enrollment rate, we believe, and we know it's doable, to have an enrollment rate of 90% or higher, meaning 9 out of 10 patients who come in for care that you think need care and you recommend care to, say yes to care. Now, if you're now sitting at like 40 or 50%, you might think, well, 90% seems bold, right? Well, if you think 90% is too much, you can back it off to maybe 70 or 80% if you feel more comfortable with that. But we've seen time and time again when doctors properly are taught how to do a day 1, day 2, having a 90% enrollment rate is no problem at all. It becomes very easy. So you can leave those as they are, or if you want to change them to your liking, you can do so. I'm going to leave them as they are. And we'll go to the next step. This last one is simply just for future projections, meaning if I was consulting with you as a financial advisor and I was advising you about saving for retirement, I think we could all agree that the sooner you start, the more years you have left to save for retirement, the better, right? The more impact it has. Well, the same with your practice. If you only have 5 years left to practice, or 10 years, or 15, whatever number of years you have left to practice, these changes will be experienced that number of years. So let's pretend right now I have 15 years left in practice. Whatever number you have, if you have 10 years, 15, 20, whatever you think it is, enter that number in here. And the next step is where you can get the report. We want to give you the ability to email it to yourself. So I'm just going to put in my own email address here right now, or make up an email, but you can put in your email so that it emails you a copy of this report. When we go to the next step, let's explain what we're seeing here. This is telling me the money that I have potentially to earn by improving the number of people I enroll in care. Now you should say, well, no big, no duh. Of course I'm going to make more money if I enroll more people in care. but I don't know if you really realize how much more money you're going to make. In this particular example, we're showing that if we increased our enrollment rate from that 13 patients up to now, we add 5 more to it. We're adding 5 more new people enrolling in care. Those 5 additional patients being enrolled equals about almost $90,000 per year of additional revenue by you just simply getting better at enrolling people in care. And if that potential is there, my question is, how much time, energy, and effort are you making to get better at enrolling people in care? Like, are you putting any energy or effort in doing that? And if you're not, you're losing money by not getting better at it. Some doctors don't really spend much time training and really exercising their communication skills on getting better at the enrollment process. That's what you're potentially leaving on the table per year. Now, if we go to the next step, and by the way, you'll see the level of growth it has. I want to mention something else here, that ultimately, if you get better at enrolling people in care, you will grow. Every practice does, but you will plateau at some level. You'll get to some level where that growth is stopped. And the reason it stops is there's only so many people you can enroll per month with your time, energy, and effort that you do. And you will eventually lose people if your retention is not good. And eventually you'll get to a place where every business does this, is you reach a point where you have to get just as many new clients or new patients every month to replace the ones you're losing, even if you're enrolling more people. So you may get to the place where you're doing $1 million a year, but you may get stuck there. You may get stuck at that level. Next, let's go down to unlocking your retention potential. Now, retention is really where the rubber meets the road, quite frankly. You'll notice here by improving retention that our number went almost $200,000 more per year by just getting better at your PVA, at having people follow through better. And I will argue that when patients follow through better, not only are you making more money, but it also leads to the better clinical outcomes. That patients not getting the full benefits of chiropractic care is secondary, a result, a symptom of them prematurely dropping out. That you're not helping the patient get the best results unless they follow through. So ultimately, we see better clinical outcomes, but you see here as we read this, it says by increasing your retention to 45, we could be seeing our existing 13 patients an additional 21 visits. Let me clarify what we're doing here. This is just improving the retention of your 13 people out of 20 you enrolled. This is not improving enrollment. This is just improving the retention of the existing new patients you're enrolling in care. You see, by doing that, it had a tremendous impact, and the growth is actually higher than getting better at enrolling people. So some doctors are like, I got to get more new patients. I got to get more new patients. I got to enroll more people. Yes, that's great. Wonderful. However, if you're not putting energy and effort in learning how to better keep those people, you're going to end up on this hamster wheel, always spinning the wheels. Now, what's really cool is when you unlock both, when you really get good at enrolling more people in care, and more importantly, you retain them. The reason this becomes exponential growth is because what happens is now we're going to go ahead and actually, instead of enrolling only 13, we're enrolling all 18. We've improved the number of people enrolling, and we're also keeping all those patients longer. That creates this exponential growth where instead of it being, the 100,000, if we go back to the previous two screens, one was 96,000, the other one was 175 or so. That you add those together, it's not 358. This is much higher. Why is it much higher? Because it's more people staying for longer. And it creates this tremendous impact in the financial growth of the practice. This is without introducing any additional new patients than you're already having. Again, this is in this example, you put in your own numbers and it will show you for your specific situation what those numbers look like. We've seen some practices where it's a difference of 100,000 a year when we get to this point, or maybe it's 400,000 or 500,000 a year difference, depending on the amount of growth potential in that practice.
And Dr. Bodzin, I want to reiterate what this combination of enrollment and retention, the impact that it has on the practice. We haven't spent any more money in our business. This is with our current people that we're doing. We're just getting better at it. And later on, you're going to reveal it's not just something the doctor needs to look at. This is a team effort. So Absolutely. We've all got to be on board in order to help our patients be more compliant in order to get these results that we're looking at here. And as we go through today's presentation, by the end of the presentation, you will know how we do this. So I'm not just setting up, oh, you need to do these things. I want to show you literally what you can do to actually accomplish this goal of building up your enrollment and retention. Now, we just got done earlier in the steps saying we're going to have 15 years left in practice.
So what does that look like? Well, 15 years of practice at that level of improvement, it's over $5 million of added revenue to that practice over the next 15 years by just getting better at enrollment and retention. So it has a huge impact. Again, it's not just, well, it's kind of a good idea. I just get more new pay. Like it has an impact of, I like to often say it's not something you do to get rich quick. It's something you do to build wealth over time, is in essence what happens here. And you see here, I'm showing on this calculator, as you go through it, it'll show you some real case studies. These are real doctors, real clients doing this stuff where they're building their enrollment and retention. And you see each year their revenues, how it continues to rise year after year. This is not insurance money. This is just their over-the-counter money they're collecting. Here's a doctor going from 1.8 million to almost 5 million in revenue. Here's a practice going from 271,000 back in 2010, over a decade ago. And in 2023, they're about to do 2.2 million. Okay, here's a practice going from 2014, a decade ago, doing 1.2 million when they started with us, doing 3.1 million this last year. Every practice we see that applies the things I'm about to teach you today, we see this common trend where they continue to grow because they're adding patients, they're getting better at enrollment, and they're getting better at retention.
And so talk about the legacy, right?
Right.
What does that money, what is that have as an impact on your life, your retirement, your investments, your community, your practice, all of it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, I don't want to make this all about money. That's why we started off by saying success is more than money. But let's be transparent. Money makes a big impact on the level of success we have and the things we're able to do. It gives us the ability to have that freedom, that time, all those things. So that's why we're using it as our metric. And ultimately, that's what you show in your practice is you're not practicing for chickens, right? You're practicing for actual money coming in, right? So here's the thing. What's the number one challenge stopping your success? Like, what is getting in the way currently of you doing that? What is getting in the way of you doing the things you need to do to get better at a report of findings and better at enrolling people and better at keeping people? Think about that. What is stopping you? Well, poor conversions and retention is what's stopping you, quite frankly. You're not good at it. And I say you, I'm not picking on you who are attending right now. I'm just saying in general, when we meet doctors, they really haven't put much energy and effort getting good at it. Where they put all their energy and effort is, give me the latest new Facebook marketing campaign to get more new patients. All of their energy is put into, how do I get more new patients? Well, we understand the importance of that. We don't discount that. But until you get really good at this, what's the point of getting a bunch of new patients if you're not converting them and you're not retaining them? So we're going to really focus on that. So we go back to the cash practice process. We're going to say this, that your success sits on top of your ability to convert and retain people. That success is dependent upon it. That conversion and retention is the foundation of your success. That's ultimately the process we're referring to. Now, what goes underneath conversion and retention? Well, let's decide, what does outstanding conversion and retention look like? Well, I personally believe that outstanding conversion looks like a 90% conversion rate. That if you're converting 90% of people into care, then that's excellent. That's where you should be. If you're less than that, then there's room to improve. Now, I'm not going to say 100% because that's probably unrealistic for most of us. But we have example after example of doctors doing well over 90%. In my own personal practice, we were averaging right around 95% enrollment rate. Now, retention, what should that look like? I always go back to, there is no perfect retention number, meaning some offices that retention needs to be 100 visits, some offices it should be 40. I always go back to, in your practice, what do you typically think a patient needs care-wise to complete an initial program of care? And when I say initial program, I don't mean the relief phase. I don't mean them just feeling better. I mean, what program do they need in order to accomplish some goal, an objective change? Let me give an example. The example might be in my practice, the goal of care was to restore a cervical curve. And in my practice, that might take 8 months, 12 months. It might require 70, 80 visits. It might require a bunch of things in order to accomplish that. So if my practice goal is, let's say, a practice where care plans generally run around 75 visits, well, then I'm going to hope my PVA is around 75, that my patients are completing that. If your practice is one where you generally think someone needs 40 visits to complete a treatment plan to get an outcome that's beyond symptomatic improvement, an outcome that achieves an objective goal, if that's what you believe, then your PVA should hopefully be that or higher. Like, it should not be 20 if you think patients need 40. So I would go back to, that's what's ideal. That's what it should be in your practice. There's no right or wrong answer. It's ideal for what's going on in your particular practice. Now, the challenge is when I consult with many doctors, Many doctors do not know what their objective outcome is with patients. They really don't know. Many are caught in this trap of, well, they're feeling better, so they must be well. If that's something you're dealing with, that's a conversation beyond what we can do here today, but there is more to chiropractic, I think we could agree, than just feeling better. There's care beyond that point for them to rehab and correct and go on to a place where maintenance and wellness is appropriate, that you've actually corrected a problem. So that's beyond the scope of today's webinar, but nonetheless, it starts with that. So what are 3 things poor conversion and retention are costing you? Well, I think that 3 things that cost of poor retention is poor clinical outcomes. If patients aren't following through, they're not getting the best results. Less freedom of time and freedom of location, and less money. That's really what it's costing you as the doctor when you don't have this stuff. And ultimately, I don't like to think of our patients as money, but this illustration is, you got to be real. People walking in your door, they are your source of revenue. That people do represent that. And every loss of patient may represent a couple $1,000s of that practice, depending on what you average on a case, what you average per person in revenue. That person not following through or not getting care or not enrolling, like if you see in your practice the average patient's worth $3,000 and you have 5 patients that don't enroll in care, that's $15,000 of lost revenue to the practice. Add that up over the year, and over the years, that adds up to literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost revenue because those people did not enroll. So again, I don't want to think of people as money, but at the end of the day, you're providing service and value to those people, and they are paying you in funds, right? But it's not just about the money, as we said, it's about our patients. So what are 3 things poor conversion is costing your patients? What are 3 things poor conversion and retention are costing your patients? And I encourage you right now, take a moment and write it down. Go through the exercise. Write out 3 things on your sheet of paper. What are 3 things poor conversion and retention are costing your patients? Well, I think we can all agree it's costing them poor outcomes. If they drop out prematurely, they're setting themselves up for reoccurrences and not getting the full benefits of a care. But we can go even further, like they're not getting great results, and that leads them to potential problems. I think we can all agree those people are probably going to be not as happy. They're going to be grumpier. They're going to have poor patience with people. Maybe they're a little more ready to engage in a negative way with people, for lack of a better word. Maybe they're a police officer or a fireman or someone who serves other people, and because they hurt, they can't do their job. Like, it goes beyond just simply, poor outcomes. Anything you want to add to that, Holly?
It's a grandma who can't hold her babies.
That's right. Like, it's right. It's costing people their lives, and we go so far as not just them, but the families and the people they interact with. It's affecting them as well. So it's a big deal. If you're not getting a sense that we're on a mission to change this, it's one of the things we take the most pride in is that we've now in a position at Cash Practice, we've helped thousands of practices help millions of additional patients get better results. Not because we're the ones laying our hands on people, but we know these doctors are having people follow through better. And it gives us tremendous joy and gratification knowing we're helping in that way. So poor conversions to premature patient dropout are the leading causes of patients not getting the full benefits of your care, i.e. poor clinical outcomes. It really is. And if there was a technique seminar that I was teaching, and I was teaching you chiropractic technique, and there was an adjustment that I could teach you to get better clinical results, and you would always get better results, I'm going to guess every one of you are going to want to learn that adjustment and potentially add it to your toolbox of adjustments so that you get better clinical outcomes with your patients. And if you're willing to take the time to learn a new adjustment or learn a new technique to get better outcomes, I'm begging of you to take the time and energy to learn what it is to get better conversions and retention so that you are getting better clinical outcomes. Because the leading cause of patients not getting the best outcomes is not because you don't know that technique. It's not because you don't have lightning bolts flying out of your fingertips, which I know many of us do. Right? We're magical with our technique. It's not because we're not good at what we do. It's because the patients fail to follow through. That's ultimately the thing that gets in the way. And I believe chiropractic would be so much further in our profession today had more people been following through. This is what happens when people prematurely drop out. They go from when they first came in, they're an F. You've graded their health and you've determined they're an F. And you get to the point where they're feeling better and they're a D or a C, and they drop out of care. Like, they leave prematurely because they think they're better because they're feeling better. Versus a patient who you've recommended a program of care and they went from a F to a D plus, and yes, by a point they're a C, they're probably feeling better and they're feeling great, but they're not fully better. They're not fully better. There's room for them to improve. And what happens is eventually you keep working with that person, they become a B, eventually an A, and we're showing them that they're making progress through their care, but more importantly, they're sticking through care. Now, I'm saying we're showing them progress because one of the things we teach is you must show people they're making progress for them to stay under care. One of the retention principles we're going to talk about is making sure patients know they're making progress. Very, very important. So what does poor patient retention and premature drop really cost your patients? It costs them a lot, right? It costs them a lot. All right. So getting back to the process here, the success is the foundation of that success is you getting really good at conversion retention. I think I've driven that point home pretty hard here. Where do you think you're dropping the ball? Okay, well, I'll tell you, when it comes to where did they go and where we're dropping people, it's simply this. We've identified there's common places that we lose people. We call these danger zones. We've taken the time to really study the journey of a patient, like from the moment they call to the moment they come into the office to the process of a day one, a day two, if you're doing that, the process of caring for them, the process of transitioning to a lifetime practice member, all through that journey, it's very predictable what people go through. And it's also very predictable of why we lose people. And we've taken the time to map this out. What you see on your screen here is what we refer to as the loyal patient journey. This is a map that we created that identifies the whole process or the journey a patient goes through. And you'll see we've highlighted with the red circles common places that patients drop out. So when we talk about losing people, having poor retention, ultimately that means they left, right? Well, it's very common to see where people leave the practice. For example, after a report of findings, or you go through a day one, day two, have you ever had someone say, let me think about it? I'm not sure I want to sign up for care. I don't think, let me just try it out. Let me dip my toes in and try a couple of it. Have you ever had that happen? I bet the answer is yes. That is a common place to lose them. And there's a reason it happens. There's a reason it happens. And I'll share a resource for you where you can learn about that. Number two is, have you ever had a patient who did start with care? You did a report of findings, you enrolled them in care, and a month later they start feeling better or their insurance runs out or something, and they drop out of care a month or two into care. Like they prematurely self-dismiss. Have you ever had that happen? And I'm going to guess every one of you have. That's a common thing to happen. It's predictable to see during the course of care. There's reasons that happens. Or, for example, here's another really big one. This is the end of a treatment plan. You've completed the initial program, and it's time to transition to wellness or maintenance care. Have you ever had someone who you tell them it's time to go to wellness or maintenance, and they drop? They say yes and they don't, or they just say, well, let me think about it, or whatever it is, and they don't continue. Or they don't continue on what you recommended. Maybe you'll see them once in a while, or they just wait till they're symptomatic again. Like they're not following your recommendations. Have you ever had that happen? And I'm going to guess the answer is yes. The reason I'm guessing it's yes, because every time I do this in a live presentation in front of an audience, every hand goes up. Yeah, we have that happen. It's a common thing, and it's common to understand. It's predictable to understand why that happens. It's predictable to understand why that happens. So when we talk about patient dropout, again, pain going away, lack of follow through, the insurance is exhausted, it's time to pay again. These are common triggers that cause people to drop out of different areas. For example, I'll go back to this last slide where we talked about at the end of care when they transition to wellness. The reason this happens, quite frankly, the reason it happens here is simply because you're asking the patient to enroll in a new program. And they have a decision to make about buying a new program. And anytime you couple good clinical news that they're ready for wellness care, but yet you're telling them they have a new thing they have to purchase, it's that decision about buying something new that gets in the way of them transitioning. In fact, when I consult with doctors who do lots of prepay programs, like that's their goal in practice is new patients come in, they want to do prepays. The challenge every one of those offices tell me is the same thing. Their re-sign rate in wellness is terrible. Like most people do not continue on to wellness care. The reason being is because the person prepaid, when the new program of wellness comes up, that patient has a big decision to make. Do I want to start spending more money? Do I want to spend new money on a new program? And they're feeling better. So a lot of them go like, well, nah, not really. I'm good, doc. I'll let you know if I need you again, that kind of thing. And it's simply a financial decision. So we've gone through the whole exercise of the journey to identify what are the things that cause people to drop. And I'll show you a resource here where you can see that. We refer to this as the loyal patient journey, and that is what we do in order to have better conversions and retention. So we're not just talking about the idea of having better conversions and retention. We literally have a roadmap that we show you and teach you to have better conversions and retention. Way you have better retention is you just remove all those danger zones. Like you literally have to learn what do you have to do to remove all those dangers, and lo and behold, people don't leave you. That's ultimately the aim here. I said I have a resource. You could write this down, or you can, again, take your phone and capture this. Or come back to it later. Loyalpatientjourney.com. Loyal Patient. It's a free resource. There's nothing to buy there. Go to that webpage, and it's interactive. It's the little journey that I just showed you in an interactive page. You can click on things. You can click on videos to watch where we explain each of the areas. You can click on each of the dangers, like you see in the image here, this danger. You can click on it or tap on your phone, and it'll open up a window that shows you, here's the cause of that. Here's how it happens. Here's a solution to solve that. So we encourage you to take a look at that. It's a tool for you to see, here's some of the things that you could be doing to neutralize those dangers during the course of a journey. Now, when we move on and say, like, what's the impact of all this stuff? I just talked about the money potential financially, but statistically, what we see is simply a 5% increase in your retention will grow your profits potentially up to 75%. Like, it has a tremendous impact by just keeping people longer. I showed you that with the graph, with the money potential, that as you keep people longer, your revenues increase, and it grows pretty significantly with retention. A 2% increase retention is pretty much equivalent to lowering your overhead expenses by 10%. So you just bumping up your retention a little bit, it's equivalent to you getting rid of whatever, 10% of your practice overhead expenses would be. So many times I hear doctors say, I need to lower overhead. I'm going to rent out a room, or I'm going to do things to help cover costs. Well, you can do that yourself. Just simply improve your retention, and you're going to stop improving those. You're going to reduce your costs. Also, if you don't know this, I'm sure most of you know this, but some of you may not. It literally costs you 6 to 7 times more to get a new patient than it does to keep an existing one. That all that energy and effort you're putting out there to market and get new people, I'm not saying don't do it. Just realize it's a expensive endeavor versus putting the time and energy and effort in to get really good at conversions and retention here. Now, how do we fix this? I know you're all like, all right, what do we do to fix this? Like, okay, enough with the intro or building up this whole need for conversion and retention. Like, give us some solutions. All right, so here we do. Let's get into that now. Make some notes here. What drives conversion to retention? First, we're going to introduce a thing called the 4 Fs. Okay, these are the 4 things we identified. Now, when I started today's presentation, I showed the picture of us in front of the practice, and I talked about who I interviewed patients, and I was learning from them. These are some of the things I learned in that interviewing process of really what ended up driving patients' behavior to stay with us. Number 1 was frequent contact. That patients knew who we were. They knew they could get that we educated them. We were basically top of mind awareness, is in essence, that we were frequently in contact, whether it was emails, newsletters, text. There was years ago, we weren't doing, there wasn't social media like there is today, but there's a lot of things you could be doing to have your name in front of them frequently. And the thing we've learned, especially today, it's even more important. It's more important today with all the noise and all the distraction people have with their phones and everything, that you have to be in front of them consistently. So that's why doctors doing a lot of social media posting, a lot of email marketing, a lot of text messaging. They're getting their message out in front of people a lot. So frequent contact is a really important component to retention. Number 2 is feedback that's intuitive. Feedback that's intuitive. It's important for patients to know they're making progress. That if a patient does not know they're making progress towards a goal, you will lose them. You will eventually lose that person. And when I say it's intuitive, if I remind you, we went a few slides ago, I showed you the letter grades, right? An F to a D. I didn't have to explain to you, if you were a patient, I didn't have to explain to you what that meant. Like, as soon as you saw an F or a D, you knew that was not good. And then when I showed you the slide that went from an F to a D to a C to a B to an A, intuitively, you knew that patient was improving. That's what we mean. You need to give feedback to patients that automatically makes sense. So they intuitively know they're making progress towards a goal. It reinforces the decision they made, that they made the right decision to hire you as their doctor. It reinforces that they're making progress toward the goal that you outlined during the report of findings. It's extremely important. If you are in practice and you've ever had a patient come to you who has been to a previous chiropractor and they leave and come to you, if you've been in the habit of asking people, why are you coming to me now? Why are you not going back to the previous doctor? You've probably heard patients say things like, well, I just don't know how I was doing over there. Or I just felt like they wanted me to keep coming back. The reason they're feeling that is because that previous doctor did not do feedback that's intuitive. They completely failed at giving patients feedback in an understandable format. Now, as chiropractors, we're good at communicating with patients generally. We're good at using different tools out there to measure things. The problem is we don't convert that language of what we're measuring into something that makes sense to our patients. So that's why we like to use letter grades. It's really easy to put all our exam findings into some software and it produce a report card for patients to get the knowledge of where they stand with their care. So that's because feedback that's intuitive is really important for retention. The third thing we found, frictionless payments. Now, frictionless payments basically means that the thought of money is not top of mind, that payments are automatically happening, that it's not where the patient's stopping at the front desk to pay every single time, that you are making it seamless. This is a crucial thing. When I said to you earlier in the presentation, I was saying that I talked with a friend and his wife suggested monthly payments. It wasn't just monthly payments. It was monthly payments that we automated. Now, the way we automated it 20 years ago was very different. We'd have people write out 12 checks for the year, or we would write down their credit card number and Holly would sit at the front desk with a terminal and key entered into a terminal, once a month, and it would take her hours to do all that, right? That's what we did back in the day before the days of automated software. But the point is that the idea, the principle of having patients automatically paying was crucial to retention. The fourth one we identified, and quite frankly, it's the most important one, and we'll be spending some time on this today, and that is forecasting care. That you forecasted for the patient what their commitment to the treatment plan would be, meaning how much time they're giving you, how long the treatment plan is going to be, how often they're coming in, and you forecasted their financial responsibilities, that they knew right up front what they were signing up with, that this forecasting was crucial. And in fact, I've yet to see a practice have really good enrollment and retention if they're not doing this. That forecasting care is sort of like the foundation of all of this, that you must forecast care. And then when you do, you use frictionless payments to pay for it. And during the course of care, you're giving the patient frequent contact and giving them regular feedback. That's kind of the cycle we're doing. And that's what we're doing, quite frankly, through that whole loyal patient journey. We refer to these as the retention principles or the 4Fs. It's an easy way to remember them. The 4Fs are what we do throughout the course of care during the journey that facilitates that patient becoming a lifetime practice member, a loyal practice member, a lifetime, a patient that stays with us. So again, the 4Fs, feedback, forecasting care, frictionless payments, and frequent contact. These are the 4 things that we focus on and that we're going to teach you about here that you do in order to have better conversions and retention that will ultimately give you that success that we're driving. So under the loyal patient journey, we're going to put feedback, forecasting care, frictionless payments, and frequent contact. That these 4 things are what we're doing throughout the loyal patient journey through those 11 steps that eliminates and neutralizes those dangers that allows that patient to follow through and be better retained that will ultimately drive your success. Now, that'll happen whether you get better conversions or not. But when you do get better conversions, and by the way, when you forecast, when you use these tools, you will have better conversions as well. So ultimately, this is driving both of those things. Now, when it comes to your retention, and we're going to really focus on, we're kind of hammer this one. When we talk about conversion, that's a topic in itself where we get into day 1, day 2, your communication, all of that. And that's beyond the scope of what we are doing today. What I want to share with you, though, today is for the people that you are enrolling in care, how do you get better and better retention? How do you do that? I want you to walk away from this presentation with, all right, I know what I need to do. And quite frankly, it's impacted mostly by 2 of the 4Fs. Of those 4 things I just outlined, 2 of them have the biggest impact that if you started doing tomorrow, you would immediately start seeing an improvement in your retention. Now, it's not going to be tomorrow you have better retention, but it takes time to build that retention, but you'll start the process of that. And that is with your forecasting and how frictionless you make payments. The better your forecasting of care with patients and the less friction there is in your payments, the easier it is for people to follow through. So that's what we're going to focus the remainder of our time on. So what I'm going to show you right now is when we look at different forms of forecasting care, which is basically your treatment plan, and we look at different forms of payments, which is how frictionless you make them, we will see the impact on your bottom line, your retention and your revenue. So let's go through and illustrate for you some different examples. Yes, go ahead, Holly.
Wanted to make sure you knew we had 10 minutes left.
Oh, really? Wow, we got okay. Well,
yes.
Okay, here we go. Forecasting care. We're going to go through these rapidly. Number 1 is per visit. The collection method with a per visit often is you're having people pay per visit. Often these practices get stuck with a PV around 12. That's what we typically see in practices that operate this way. And at a $50 fee, we end up seeing them stuck around $600 of value. What I mean by this is that if your practice, all you're doing is recommending one visit at a time, and you're having people pay one visit at a time, don't be surprised if your PVA gets stuck right around 12 and that the average patient is worth about $600. That's what we generally see in these practices. Next is the forecasting is exam to exam. Exam to exam. What this means is you're recommending enough care for that patient to get to the first exam and then the second exam and third exam at each progress exam. So a report of findings might be, let me get you started with care. I'm going to recommend 12 visits. I'll reevaluate next month and we'll take it from there. We refer to that as an open-ended treatment plan. If you're doing that, generally we see most practices are collecting that money in blocks of visits. Basically, they're having them purchase 10 or 12 visits at a time. Generally, we see these practices get stuck around 24 to 36 visits. The reasoning for that is because many of these patients end up dropping out after 2 or 3 blocks of visits. The same reason that we have people drop out at the end of a program and go to wellness, I mentioned earlier, it's because there's a new financial decision they have and they're feeling better. I think we could agree that after 1, 2, maybe 3 progress exams, most patients are feeling the improvements symptomatically. They're feeling better, but meanwhile, they're having to make the decision about buying more visits. So we end up losing these people and they get stuck around 24 to 36 visits. And that practice has an average case fee of around $1,800 in those practices. The next is what we call the care plan. The care plan is where you've recommended a comprehensive program of care, start to finish, 40 visits, 50 visits, 60 visits, whatever it is, to accomplish the full goal of care with that patient. That's the intention of a care plan. It's not just a few visits. It's not just to get them to the first progress exam. It's literally everything you think that patient needs in order to get the results that you're looking for. Now, one way to collect the money for that is a prepayment. Now, I'm not a fan of prepay. I don't think it's the best option, but it is a choice. And it's something that some people want, not most, but there are some people who want that. And if you do make that a choice in your practice, we see that those practices have a PVA around 50 to 75 visits. They do have a higher PVA. They generally have a higher follow through. They still get stuck at some glass ceiling though, but that case average does go up when they're doing the prepays. And I believe that's why it's so attractive for so many doctors to do it, is because it does improve things. It does improve case averages. However, it's still not the best. We could take that same care plan, and like I did back in practice, and what many practices do now, is we've switched to a monthly auto debit. And what we see in these practices is their PVAs run up 150 plus. We see these really high retention rates in these practices, and that same patient now is worth $7,500 for the practice over the course of several years. Now, granted, this is not them getting, they're not saying they need 100 visits in that first 3 months. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying they tend to last much longer in the lifespan of your practice, or the lifespan of them using your services, and then they're generating significantly more revenue to the practice. The bottom line here is that the more you forecast, or the better you forecast, let me just say it that way, or the more comprehensive your forecast. I'm not suggesting that you overestimate care. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just simply saying you estimate the care you believe the patient truly needs, and then you offer them a care plan that offers payment options that include a monthly payment. You will see more acceptance of care, and you will see better retention with those patients. And to show you some more case studies, I've already shown you these. I've already shown you examples that when doctors do this, they see this incredible growth. And for the sake of time, I'm going to skip over that slide. The only practices that grow like this, month after month and year after year, are the ones that continuously convert new patients, but more importantly, retain them. If you haven't gotten the message, what we're teaching you is retention is the key to your success here. Conversion and retention drives the forces of success in your practice. I've seen plenty of practices that are great at conversion, but not great at retention. But I have not seen any practices great at retention who are not good at conversion. Like, you get what I'm saying? Is like, for you to be good at retention, you really have to be good at your conversion process. The loyal patient journey is the path to execute better conversion than retention. And we gave you a resource to see that. Those 4 F's are what we execute during those 11 steps of the loyal patient journey that leads to better conversion and retention. And the outcomes are incredible. Doctors going from, like I said, a 90% high and over. Again, examples of doctors doing this where their conversion rates are increasing tremendously. Or here, Dr. Felicity, who I was really happy to interview here and talk to her about this, or hear her story. How I remember when she came to us with like a 20-30% enrollment rate. And here she was claiming she was close to 100% enrollment rate, like after learning this stuff. It has a tremendous impact on the bottom line. Or increasing their PVA from, he said, less than 10, these are his own words, to around 70 visits. Or going from 12 to 15 visits up to 50 visits, like really seeing improvements in both their conversions and retention, case study after case study after case study of doctors accomplishing that, doubling our PVA from 20 to 40. Again, just to illustrate that point. When it comes to forecasting, I want to just finish our last bit with this. And that is, when it comes to building a care plan, the things you don't want to do are the following. Don't make up your own spreadsheets. The days of doing that are long gone. The reason being is when it comes to compliance and the way you calculate things, there's very specific ways things need to be done and calculated. And most spreadsheets we see doctors doing are not accurate and not doing things compliantly. Likewise, there's all kinds of legal terms you have to have in your agreements. Federal law now requires certain things that these spreadsheets are not including. Doing these handwritten things where you're kind of filling in the blanks, that's old school. We're not recommending you do that. It's prone to errors. You see with the old calculator there, it's prone to errors and issues. It creates stress for your front desk, all that kind of stuff. Those days, although they were effective many years ago, are not appropriate in today's environment. What's appropriate today is using a professional care plan, something that is designed to calculate things correctly, include all of the legal requirements of your care plans, all of the disclaimers that are required, all the things that are literally required for you today to be doing if you're recommending care to patients. For example, you must, by federal law, disclose your fees to people and what you've recommended prior to them receiving those services. Those are all important things in the practice.
And Dr. Bodzin,
yes.
I just want to add in on the topic of care plans. Some doctors come to us and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I'm a cash-based practice, so the rules don't apply to me," and that's not true. These care plans are for cash-based practices, cash and insurance blended practices, PI practices. Like whatever you're doing, it applies to you. There's nothing you could do to get around it.
Absolutely. And if you have questions around that, you could certainly put it in the chat and we can get back to you after the webinar is over. Or if you want to, connect with us, we can answer the kind of questions for you. I know that's a bold statement to say that it implies all these people, but it does. Like literally you need to disclose your fees and disclose what the recommendations are and disclose, for example, there's an 800 number that is a complaint number, basically, that patients have the right to call and complain about you if to a review. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a
CMS. It's a government agency, and this is
CMS.
This is regardless of you doing pay per visit, packages of care, or blocks of care. It applies to no matter what your practice style is.
And that's the stuff, just to clarify, we take all that stuff into consideration to make sure that when we're providing a document like this, it covers all of that for you. So that's ultimately the aim. When it comes to the actual care plans, I just want to hit a few things here. And I'll tell you this. I do realize we're going to go over time here, and with your permission, I'm going to go about 5-10 minutes over time. I'm normally trying to get this stuff done in that timely period, but I don't want to shortchange you guys. I really want to take the time to do this. So if you do have to run, no problem, drop off. You can come back to the recording and just fast forward to the last 10 minutes. That's fine. For those of you who are live right now, just stick with me for the next 10 minutes and we'll be wrapping up here. Care plans are a reflection of your patient's treatment plan. What we mean by that is that when you recommend a financial plan to a patient, it matches your treatment plan. If your treatment plan is 6 months, then your care plan is 6 months. If your treatment plan is 8 months, then your payment plan is 8 months, that they're in sync with each other. That care plans cover all the care a patient's going to need. It's not just a little bit of care. It's not just the relief care. It's everything they need in order to accomplish the goal of care in your practice. Care plans include all services, including those covered by insurance and those not covered by insurance. So if you are a practice that does insurance still, which most are, you can build a care plan that incorporates both their covered services and their non-covered services, and we show you how to do that. One of the things that does when you do that, it eliminates the danger of you losing patients when their insurance is exhausted. If you've been in the habit in your practice of having patients use their insurance, and when you've exhausted their insurance, trying to convert them to cash, I'm going to bet you've not been very successful at that. That it's not typically successful routinely to have people who have been used to paying a smaller fee, once they're feeling better, having to pay more now because they're paying out of pocket 100% of it, right? So that doesn't work. It just doesn't work in the long run. What we found is when you incorporate their insurance into their care plan, when the insurance runs out, you're no longer losing people for that reason. It eliminates that danger. It eliminates that danger. Care plans are not presented to a patient until you've got an agreement to the treatment plan. This has to do with day 1, day 2 material that doctors, you must get a yes to your treatment plan before money's ever discussed. And that's all I'll say about that. That's a big topic in itself. Care plans can be presented to a patient by either the doctor or the assistant. That's pretty straightforward. Care plans must be compliant to satisfy the good faith estimate you're legally required to provide per the Federal No Surprises Act of 2022. That's what we just got done talking about, that the federal government now has this law in place that you must go over a good faith estimate with patients to review your treatment plan and the fees, et cetera, prior to them receiving services. Now, we've always taught for the last 20 years, doing a care plan is good business practice. But it's not just good business practice. Now it's a legal requirement. They actually do this with your patients in advance. And here's what that might look like. Here it's showing on this example. Here's the care plan. It has the words good faith estimate on it. We go to the next, it has your practice. These are all just basically some things that are required on your care plans. And therapy, what the services are, the stack that it's a good faith estimate, that there's this disclaimer on it that's required with the phone number. You see down here, it has on here a number of pieces of data that's required, patient's name, their date of birth, etc. There's a bunch of things that are required as part of the good faith estimate. The benefits of the care plans, it satisfies this good faith estimate requirement. It streamlines the flow at your front desk. There's no confusion over finances with your patients. There's more time to focus on patient care, better treatment plan compliance. Let's basically talk about better retention, better clinical outcomes. Patients follow through better, so you get better outcomes. Increased cash collections, no doubt you have better collections in your practice. Increased patient retention, a happier team, a happier practice members. Really, it makes everybody's life a lot easier. For the sake of time, we won't focus too much on that, but I will tell you, normally when we talk about this, Holly will do a whole section on the joy it brings to team members. But for the sake of time, we'll kind of, if it's okay, we'll just kind of skip over that. But team members are thrilled with this because it makes their job at the front desk so much easier. So when we talk about forecasting care plans, basically the way it works is services will be added up. It'll come to some total cost. And then that total cost we present to the patient as 3 different payment options. Option 1 is a monthly payment. Option 2 is a down payment with smaller monthly payments. And option 3 is a one-time prepayment. And the patient would choose what works best for them. That's ultimately the model here. And then the way we build these is, I will show you, this screen is showing you each line here represents the services you may be doing in your practice. Adjustments, progress exams, new x-rays, therapies, whatever it is you do in your practice. It'll add up to some total cost, and then there'll be a compliant way of discounting it. And when I say a compliant way, there are legal parameters we have to stay within in order to be compliant when it comes to our discounts. And that subject of the way we discount is, again, beyond the scope of the time we have here. But we do teach you that. We do teach you how we do this and make sure you're staying compliant so that you're not getting accused of having dual fee schedules and that type of thing. It also allows you to maximize your reimbursement from insurance companies or PI cases while still making care affordable for your cash paying patients. There's a way to do this compliantly that's not going to get you in trouble. Most of what we see being done out in the field by people, doctors making up their own thing, quite frankly, most of what we see being done is not compliant and potentially opens the doctors up to audits and other issues. So we want to avoid that for you guys. So we train and teach you how to do that properly. But the bottom line is, when presenting a care plan to a patient, it's going to come to some value and there's going to be some discounted cost to it. And that discounted cost is going to then be presented to the patient in those 3 different options. And the patient would choose what works best for them. This isn't, I'm going to close the deal and hard close them and hard sell them into a prepay. That's not what this is. What this is you've led them down a path where they know they want treatment, they want care from you, and you're just going to give them 3 different options so they can select what works best for them. And you don't really care, quite frankly, which of these options they choose. You shouldn't care. It should be whatever works best for the patient, that's what they choose. And ultimately, by having this patient choose, you're going to see most people will choose one of those first 2 options. Most patients will choose either recurring or a down payment with smaller recurring payments. And that's what, quite frankly, you want them to choose. Why do you want them to choose that? Because once they get used to making a monthly payment, it becomes really easy to transition them to wellness care. That if someone's been paying me $375 for the last, let's say, year or 8 months, when it's time for wellness and I get to say, hey, great news, your wellness scores improved, your x-rays have improved, everything's improved, you are clinically ready to go to wellness care. By the way, your $375 payment is going down to $175. What I just did there is I presented good clinical news along with good financial news. And that's one of the steps in the journey, is presenting patients good clinical news coupled with good financial news. That little thing will skyrocket the transition to wellness care. That little thing, if you take that to heart and utilize that, you will see many more patients going on to wellness care. But in order to do that, that means the patients were on a monthly payment to begin with. If they're not on a monthly payment to begin with, that conversation, when it's time to transition to wellness, can't happen. So that's why you generally want to have people be on these monthly payments. Now on this screen here, I just want to illustrate the 2 lines that are highlighted. Those are services that are covered by insurance. And when they're covered by insurance, we cannot discount them. So in this particular example, in this care plan, those two lines are at full retail price. They're full value. There's no discount being applied to the services going to a deductible or if they're co-pays, whereas everything else, if you're doing a discount, can be applied. I want to clarify that if you're doing discounting, it's only on non-covered services, not anything covered. But regardless, all of this gets added up into some total value that total amount is, again, split into either a monthly, a down a monthly, or a prepay, and the patient to choose what works best for them. Normally, we would like to do a demo here. We're not going to do that today. What we're going to do is invite you to have the opportunity that if you would like to learn more about Cash Practice, you would like to learn to see how do you actually do this? Because ultimately at Cash Practice, when it comes to, and I'm going to just skip ahead here, when it comes to the services of these four things of feedback, forecasting care, frictionless payments, and frequent contact, what we do at our company, what we do to help you do that is we give you the tools to do these things. We give you a tool to accomplish the goal of feedback. We do that using a tool called the wellness score. I showed you the letter grades before. Well, we have a program that lets you do that to give feedback to a patient. When it comes to, that's what this represents here. If you want to do forecasting care, well, that's the basis of doing all this. We have a tool called the Care Plan Calculator. That's software that lets you build these care plans and build them compliantly. That's ultimately what that does. It's an extremely important, valuable tool to your practice. The third is for frictionless payments. That's for automating payments. And when we automate payments, we have a tool called the auto debit system that lets you do all of this. It lets you automate payments. And then the last thing is for frequent contact. If you want to have an email-based system for doing automated patient education and marketing, we have a tool called the Drip Education System. It's an email platform. And all four of these systems are designed to work together to help you execute the 4Fs so that you could successfully and routinely do the loyal patient journey. So if you learn the journey and you learn these concepts, you could attempt to do all this stuff on your own. You could attempt to do your own care planning and your own email and your own payments and kind of piece all this together. However, what we've done at Cash Practice is we built a platform, a growth platform, a growth tool to help you grow the practice by allowing you to execute all these things. And we literally have thousands of offices doing it. And we're very proud of the fact that we've had close to 200 positive reviews here. You know, we'd love to have more, but we have so many reviews. Go to our Google, our Capterra, and see across the board, we have 5-star reviews for our service. Like Michael here, who says Cash Practice they've been using over 10 years and it's amazing. It's all, it's easy, et cetera, et cetera. Or Daniela here, who's had more than 5 of our business, use the system and it's been working forever. And just case after case, you can look at our Google reviews and see for yourself of how satisfied people are. I'm going to end with this, unless there's any questions, Holly, you want me to address, because I haven't seen if any questions have come in. If there are, I would like to, if there's anyone that you think I should really answer while we're talking about this.
I will say everything that we've shown you today, whether it's a wellness score or emails or care plans or payment options, all of that is customizable to your practice and what it is that you're doing. There's nothing cookie cutter about this. I encourage you to book a call at cashpractice.com/demo and let our team of retention experts help you identify and remove those situations where you have patient dropout so that we can help you increase your conversion, retention, and revenue. All right, you guys, thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you, Dr. Bodzin.
And thanks for staying on longer. You guys have a great one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.